Welcome to the Tired Thinker, where the self shimmers like a reflection on moving water, and identity shifts each time we look too closely. Tonight's mystery belongs to you, to the strange familiarity of being someone, and the equal strangeness of not knowing who that someone truly is. What is the self, if memories fade and habits change? If consciousness is a story we tell ourselves, can the storyteller ever step outside the narrative? Are you the thoughts you think, or the one who notices them? And if personality is constantly rewritten, why do we still feel like a continuous me? These aren't puzzles to solve, but mirrors to linger in. To notice the boundaries of the body, the echo of an inner voice, the quiet witness behind experience that whispers, I am. So tonight, we'll wander the thin line between awareness and identity. No panic, just the soft fascination of consciousness reflecting on itself. Before we follow the thread inward, where are you tuning in from? What moment of your unfolding life holds you right now? If these questions of being settle into your thoughts, I'd be grateful if you liked or subscribed, so more curious minds might step with us into the mystery of the self. Now, let's begin. You change, you cut your hair, you move to a new place. You stop speaking to someone you once loved. You forget a favorite song. You learn a new way to calm your nerves. You stop laughing at the jokes that once defined your sense of humor. But the world still looks at you and says, I know who you are. It holds on to an old version and expects you to wear it like a familiar coat. Identity often lingers long after the experiences that built it fade. Picture a childhood home. You can remember the layout, maybe the smell of the kitchen, the squeak of the third stair, the shadow under the back porch. But if you return today, you would see different furniture, new people, a fresh coat of paint. The house remains, yet it also isn't the house you knew. You remain too, even when everything that shaped you has changed. Think about your first nickname. Maybe it came from the way you walked, or the way you laughed. Maybe it was something you did once. It stuck, even after you stopped doing it. That name did not ask your permission. It attached itself to an early version of you and kept walking beside you. Other people used it, and part of you learned to accept the mask they handed you. The mask remembers, even when you forget. Imagine a student who used to struggle in school. She got low grades, sat in the back row, felt invisible. Years later, she studies hard, learns what works for her, and succeeds in college. Yet every holiday, she returns home and others treat her like the student who never cared. The struggle became her role, and everyone else kept handing her the script. Her mask remains stuck in time. It remembers the moment she once failed. Or think about the shy kid from high school. He grows up to lead meetings. He presents to rooms of strangers with steady hands. He knows how to speak, and he knows how to listen. Yet when he reunites with old classmates, they speak over him. They talk about how quiet he always was. They place him back inside the silence he left behind. Some parts of the self grow up. Some parts never get permission to. Identity sits between two forces. One comes from the inside. You build a sense of self from memories and choices. You gather moments that feel true. You decide what matters. But the other force comes from the outside. People reflect a version of you back at you. Families remember who you were at age 9. Old friends remember your mistakes. Strangers guess who you are from the way you stand or the clothes you wear. These reflections can become powerful. Sometimes they drown out your inner voice. The mask becomes the person everyone believes in. It becomes easier to wear it than to argue with those who insist they know the real you. This can feel comforting too. Identity can act like a landmark in a foggy place. When you don't know who you are, others may remind you, but there is a quiet risk. When the mask becomes too tight, you might forget it is only a mask. You might confuse the memory of who you were with who you can still be. Consider someone who once loved drawing. She filled sketchbooks with characters and scenes. She lost that habit as life grew louder. Work filled her days. Stress filled her nights. She tells herself she isn't an artist anymore, but the mask remembers the joy she felt, and it waits. One day she picks up a pencil again. The line on the page feels like a door opening. She realizes she never stopped being that person. She only stopped making space for her. Identity can return too. Pieces thought lost often sit just below the surface. Now imagine someone who used to act confident and bold. He became the leader in every group. Others admired his courage. Then life shifted. He grew afraid of failure. He began avoiding decisions. The mask still tells people he is fearless, but he knows what he hides. He feels trapped in a version that no longer fits. He wants to say, "I changed," but he fears the disappointment in their eyes. Sometimes we hold on to old versions of ourselves to protect others from confusion. Sometimes we do it to protect ourselves from grief. Identity becomes a keeper of stories, many of which stopped being true long ago. You might still think of yourself as the one who fixes everything in your family, even if you now feel tired. You might think of yourself as the funny friend, even when jokes feel heavy on your tongue. You might think you are the responsible one, because everyone's expectations built that belief into your skin. The past can be sticky. The self can be slow to update. There is a simple question worth asking. Which parts of you did you choose, and which parts did you inherit? The answer may reveal that a large portion of your identity comes from accidents. A teacher's comment, a parent's worry, a friend's casual label, a moment you handled poorly once and never lived down. These events can fossilize into identity. You carry them long after the moment loses meaning. Identity outlives experience because the brain does not throw away what once kept you safe. If you learned as a child that being quiet avoids trouble, that strategy stays hidden in your instincts even after you become stronger. If you learned that pleasing others earns love, you may still feel panic when you disappoint someone. The mask does not forget the lessons that once protected you, yet you continue to change. New memories replace old ones. New goals overwrite old fears. But identity can lag behind, like software waiting for an update. You can ask yourself, who am I right now, not 5 years ago? What mask do others expect me to wear? Does it still belong to me? Change will always feel slower to people who watched an old version of you grow. They will see a ghost wearing your face. They will talk to the memory, not the person. It takes patience to remind others that you are no longer who you were. The mask that remembers can feel like a burden, but it is also a sign of how much you have lived. It holds the evidence that you once laughed at things you no longer find funny. You once feared things you can now face. You once tried hard to become the person you are already becoming. Some days you may still feel the mask tighten around you, holding an old shape. You may want to step out from behind it. You may want to tell the world, I am not finished. Before you speak your first word, the world already speaks for you. A name appears on a birth certificate. Your parents say it out loud. Doctors write it in charts. It becomes the tag on blankets, backpacks, and forms. That name walks into every room before you do. It offers a hint of who you might be, long before you know anything about yourself. People react to names. They form expectations the moment they hear one. Some names feel strong. Some feel gentle. Some feel old. Some feel modern. A name can sound familiar or strange. It can carry the weight of family history, or the hope of a fresh start. You never choose your first label, yet you learn to answer to it. You learn to turn your head when someone calls it out. A simple label builds the first outline of identity. Picture a classroom. The teacher reads a list of names. Before she looks up, she forms tiny ideas about each student. She notices patterns from years of experience. She remembers a James who caused trouble. She remembers a Sophia who always raised her hand. The children sitting in front of her do not know these stories, but the teacher's memory shapes the way she speaks to them. A name becomes a shadow of those who came before. Now think about the names people shorten without asking. Someone named Catherine becomes Kate. Someone named Jonathan becomes John. Those nicknames may feel friendly, yet they also show how others reshape identity to fit their comfort. The person wearing the name adjusts. They smile and nod because correcting someone seems like too much work. Over time, they accept the version others created. Names can help people feel known. They can also make people feel trapped. Imagine a child named after a relative. The family expects her to carry certain traits. They say things like, "She has her grandfather's stubbornness," or "He has his aunt's charm." These comments may sound harmless, but the child hears them again and again. They start to think those traits define them. They want to fulfill the story they were handed, even if it does not feel right. Labels pile up. Smart, quiet, bossy, sensitive, athletic, difficult, gifted, lazy, weird. These words shape behavior. A kid who gets called responsible will pick up more chores because others expect it. A kid who gets called clumsy may stop trying new things. They learn to match the name instead of testing their own limits. Identity becomes a performance. The audience hands out roles. The actors follow the script. A label can stick even when reality changes. Take the student who once struggled with reading. In high school, she works hard and becomes strong in language arts. But some classmates still joke about how she hated books. They freeze her in a moment she has long outgrown. She feels pressure to laugh along, so she does not seem difficult. The truth stays quiet behind her mask. Then there's the person known as the funny friend. He brings jokes to every hangout. People rely on him to keep the mood light. One day, he feels sad and tired. He tries to open up, but someone says, "Where's your smile today?" The message is clear. He is supposed to be one thing. He learns to hide other parts of himself. Labels simplify people, but real lives are complex. Sometimes labels protect us. A diagnosis gives a name to a struggle. It helps someone understand why they feel anxious or why concentration slips away. A doctor's words can unlock resources and support. A label can guide healing. Yet even helpful labels can become fences. When someone sees only the diagnosis, they miss the person who carries it. Names connect us to groups too. Last names tie us to families and cultures. They signal heritage, history, and sometimes assumptions. A last name might lead someone to guess where you come from, what language you speak, or what religion you follow. Those guesses may be wrong, but they can influence how people treat you before you speak. Online, labels multiply fast. Profiles ask for usernames, pronouns, interests, and job titles. These choices give others shortcuts to understand us. They also limit what parts of us appear in public. When you choose a profile picture, you choose which version of yourself others get to meet. The digital mask becomes part of your identity, even when you log off. There is a quiet moment in every life when you notice the distance between who you are and who others think you should be. You may ask yourself, did I choose this path or did a label push me here? The answer is often mixed. You learned early that certain traits earned praise. You learn to repeat the actions that made others comfortable. Labels start outside, but they sink in deep. You may still think of yourself as the shy one, even though you speak up every day at work. You may still believe you are bad at math because of a teacher's comment from long ago. You may still feel small when someone uses a childhood nickname. These moments show how labels linger in memory long after the facts change. A name can wear a person like clothing that once fit well, but now feels tight. You can outgrow labels without noticing. You can evolve faster than others expect. Identity bends, adapts, and keeps moving. Yet the world often holds onto the earliest version of you. It points to your name and the labels glued to it and says, "This is who you are," and you must decide whether to agree. There is a part of you that never says a word, yet it knows everything you think. It sits behind every choice you make. It notices when your mind wanders. It sees your fears rise and fall like waves. You may forget it most of the day, but it's always there. It does not judge. It does not rush. It watches. Picture a moment when you say something you regret. The words spill out. Maybe you sound impatient. Maybe you sound defensive. As soon as the words leave your mouth, something inside you says, "Why did I say that?" That voice appears not as sound, but as awareness. It shows up after the action. It reminds you that the speaker and the watcher are not the same. Or think about when you try to fall asleep. The room is quiet. You lie there with your eyes closed. Thoughts drift through your mind. You recall the day. You replay a conversation. You plan tomorrow. And through all this movement, something stands still. Something observes the thinking. That still part does not join the conversation. It only listens. This silent observer seems separate from the thinking mind. The thinking mind gets caught in arguments, worries, plans, and memories. It reacts fast. It tries to solve problems even when there are none. But the observer stays calm. It notices the rush of thoughts without getting pulled in. Some people call this observer consciousness. Others call it the self. Neuroscience points to networks in the brain that create awareness. Psychology calls it metacognition, the ability to think about thinking. But the labels do not change the experience. You feel it every time you realize you are distracted. You feel it every time you reflect. Is this really what I want to do? Imagine someone scrolling on a phone. Their thumb moves without much thought. One video leads to another. Minutes pass, and a moment arrives when they notice the motion. They ask, "Why am I still doing this?" That shift did not come from the scrolling mind. It came from the observer who stepped forward and saw the habit happening. The observer feels like a witness. It sees you get excited when someone texts back. It sees you tighten your chest when you remember a mistake. It sees the stories you tell yourself about who you are, but it does not respond to those stories. It watches them pass like weather. You may notice the observer during strong emotions. Anger rises fast. You feel heat in your face. Your jaw tightens. Your breathing changes. At first, you only feel the anger, but then a tiny space opens. Something inside you says, "I am angry right now." That space can give you a choice. You can act on the anger or wait. The observer gives you that choice by shining light on the feeling. The observer never argues. It never says, "Do better." It does not give advice. It does not explain. It shows what is real without words. When you pause long enough to notice it, you see that you are not only the voice in your head, you are also the one who hears it. Take someone who deals with anxiety. Their mind may rush ahead. It may imagine worst-case scenarios. It may warn of danger that does not exist. The observer does not stop the anxious thought, but it notices when the thought appears. It sees the fear as a thought rather than a fact. That small shift can help someone breathe again. Or take joy. You laugh with a friend. You feel light. You enjoy the moment. Then the observer appears. It notices the warmth in your chest. It notices the sense of belonging. By noticing the moment instead of rushing through it, the observer helps the feeling last longer. Sometimes the observer shows up in moments of confusion. You search for keys. You open the wrong drawer. You shake your head. A part of you notices your own mistake. You see yourself forgetting. The observer sees both the confusion and the reaction to it. It is easy to miss this presence because it never pushes itself forward. It stays in the background. The thinking mind takes center stage every time. The thinker tells stories about the past and future. It debates. It chases goals. It worries about outcomes. The observer watches the drama with patience. You can test this for yourself. Sit still for a moment. Close your eyes. You will notice thoughts arrive without effort. A sentence forms. A memory flashes. A plan appears. You did not ask for any of it, yet another part of you sees all of it. The observer does not create thoughts. It sees them come and go. It raises a curious question. If you can watch your thoughts, then who is the you doing the watching? And if the observer stays the same while everything else changes, then what part of you is real? The silent observer might be the closest thing you have to a stable self. It does not cling to labels or roles. It does not age in the way personality does. It remains steady behind every version of you that has lived. The observer remembers the person you were at 6, at 16, and last week. It watches each version appear and fade. It sees the story evolve. And though it never speaks aloud, it knows you better than anyone ever could. And when you think about who you are, you look backward. You bring up memories. You recall moments when you felt proud, scared, or full of hope. You picture the people who shaped you. You tell yourself a story that links those scenes together. But memory is not a vault. It is not a perfect recording of your life. It changes each time you open it. The past shifts slightly every time you remember it. So the question rises, if memory shapes identity and memory moves, then what does that mean for the self? Think of a favorite childhood moment. You might remember running through a yard, playing with a friend, or tasting a dessert that felt special. You see a clear picture, but that clarity can be misleading. Your brain fills in missing details. If your mother once told you you always loved the blue swing, your memory may place a blue swing in that scene, even if it was red. You trust the memory because it feels familiar. But feelings do not guarantee facts. Neuroscience shows that the act of remembering reworks the memory. The brain retrieves the memory, edits it, and stores it again like a file rewritten each time it opens. The more you recall a moment, the more it changes. Details fade or sharpen, depending on the story you now prefer. Memory becomes less like a photograph and more like a painting, one that the artist adjusts each time someone looks at it. Picture someone who once gave a speech in school. At the time, maybe they only shook a little, their voice cracked once. But years later, they remember the entire room laughing. They remember embarrassment as the only emotion in the scene. Each retelling builds a bigger disaster. The fear grows into the main character. That person may now believe they are bad at public speaking because the memory sculpted a fearful identity. Now imagine the opposite. Someone remembers a small success, finishing a puzzle first or getting a compliment from a teacher. Over the years, they add more pride. They imagine applause that never happened. They use that moment as proof of their ability. That memory helps them aim higher. In both cases, the story changes the self. Memory selects what to keep and what to ignore. If you felt nervous often during childhood, those moments might take up more space in memory than the times you felt brave. So you grow into a version of yourself that says, I have always been anxious. The truth might be more complex, but the brain prefers simple stories. The self becomes a highlight reel rather than a full history. We also forget at times that some memories do not come from events we lived through. A family member may tell a story about you as a toddler, how you used to dance in the kitchen or refuse vegetables. You add that story to your identity, even though you cannot recall the experience. You trust their memory more than your own absence of memory. You treat the secondhand story as part of who you are. Movies and photos influence memory too. Look at a picture of a family trip. You might not remember the exact moment the shutter clicked, but the photo becomes the memory. You tell yourself that you felt the warmth of the sun that day. You believe you loved that trip. The image stands in place of a real feeling that may never return. Memories harden into identity, even when they were never clear in the first place. Sometimes memory protects you. Painful events soften over time. The sharp edge becomes a dull outline. You remember that something hurt, but the details blur so you can move forward. The brain edits the scene to make life bearable. Other times, memory protects the pain itself. You hold onto a moment of rejection because you believe it will help you avoid hurt in the future. That moment grows stronger in your mind because you revisit it often. The observer inside you uses it as a warning sign. Identity forms around the scar. There is also the strange experience of remembering who you used to be and feeling like you are watching someone else's life. You read an old journal and see words that no longer sound like yours. You remember a dream that once pulled you forward, and you wonder how it lost its power. The gap between old memories and current self can feel wide. You may ask yourself, was that really me? Maybe both answers are true. You were that person once, and you are not that person now. We like to think identity stays the same. We say things like, I know who I am. But memory shows that the self is under constant revision. Each day adds new content to the story. Each reflection edits who you were. You use memory to explain the present, not to preserve the past. You adjust the plot to match the current chapter. Two siblings can share the same event, but remember it differently. One recalls a joyful holiday. The other remembers tension. They each build a different identity around the same history. Reality does not shape identity. Interpretation does. Memory becomes the sculptor, and the self becomes the sculpture. But the sculptor never stops carving. When you think about yourself tonight or tomorrow, you will reach into memory again. You will pick up a few moments and set others aside. You will trust some feelings more than facts. You will build a story that helps you understand today. And in doing so, you will change the story of yesterday. Every life contains paths that never opened and choices that faded before you made them. You can feel their presence when you pause long enough. They stand behind you like silhouettes. They do not speak, but you remember what they wanted. They show up in small questions. What if I had stayed? What if I had tried? What if I had said yes? These ghosts are not scary. They are reminders of how many lives you could have lived. Think about a decision you made years ago. Maybe you turned down a job in another city because the timing felt wrong. You stayed close to home. You built routines you now know by heart. But there is a version of you in that other city who learned new subway routes and met new people. That version walks a different street each morning. You can picture them, even if the details are fuzzy. That version feels real because your mind can fill in the missing pieces. You imagine the life that almost happened. Or think about someone you once loved. You planned a future. You pictured holidays, trips, or a shared home. Then the relationship ended. The future collapsed. But somewhere inside you, the version of yourself who stayed with them still lingers. That version ages in silence. They become a quiet companion to the person you are now. You do not regret the break. You do not wish to go back. But the ghost of that possible life still walks through your thoughts from time to time. These ghosts appear in everyday moments. A musician who stopped playing might notice a guitar in a shop window and feel a tug. A student who once dreamed of medical school may read an article on health and feel a strange pull. A parent might wonder who they would be if they had no children, or if they had more. Every ghost is formed from a choice made or a chance missed. You did not choose wrong. You only chose once. The rest remained behind. The brain keeps track of possibilities because imagining the future helps us survive. We picture outcomes. We test different paths before acting. But once we choose a direction, the other paths do not vanish. They become mental outlines we can visit in thought. You might sit in your living room and feel the ghost of yourself who moved far away. You might work in an office and think of the version of you who pursued art full-time. These thoughts give shape to the invisible edges of identity. Some possible selves formed from luck. If you were born in another country or into another family, many parts of your story would shift. Your accent, your beliefs, your traditions, and your confidence would all change. You would still be you, but altered. You can sense that alternate life when you see someone with a background very different from your own. You think, I might have been them if a few things had gone differently. The idea feels strange because it shows how thin the line is between who you are and who you might have been. Other ghosts appear from accidents that never happened. You avoided a crash without noticing. You left a place moments before trouble. You never knew the danger, but the ghost does. It reminds you that survival also shapes identity. You became the version of yourself who lived through that day. The version who did not remains an unspoken shadow. Not all ghosts haunt. Some comfort. You might imagine a future self who succeeds at something you want. That version of you encourages you from ahead. You picture yourself healthier, calmer, or more confident. You do not know if you will reach that place, but the image helps you move forward. It gives you a direction. In that sense, a possible self can inspire. Yet some ghosts hold sadness. They carry dreams that faded because you felt afraid or unsure. They show up when you see someone doing what you once wanted. You may feel envy or regret. You may feel tender hope. These emotions do not mean you failed. They show that your mind still values the lost path. You cared enough to imagine it. Picture a young man who always wanted to write. He started a novel years ago. Life became busy. He closed the file and never returned. Now, when he passes a library, he wonders what the version of him who finished the book is doing. That ghost may never become real, but it will remain as long as the dream mattered. Or think of someone who once planned to travel. A new job and bills changed their priorities. The ghost of the traveler still looks out through their eyes when a plane flies overhead. It asks, what if? Not to shame them, only to remind them that possibility still exists. We often judge ourselves by the path we took, but identity includes the paths we left behind. The self is not a single story. It is a collection of drafts. For every version of you who learned a skill, there is a version who quit. For every version who stayed calm, there is one who panicked. For every version who spoke up, there is one who stayed silent. You carry all of them. You feel them at crossroads, birthdays, reunions, or when you stare at the ceiling late at night. These ghosts show that identity is bigger than the present moment. You are the person who chose this life, and also the person who could have chosen differently. You can thank the possible selves for helping you see what matters. You can listen to the quiet pull of the paths not taken. They remind you that your story is still unfolding. Peace. Most of your life, you experience the world from inside your own head. You look out through your eyes. You hear through your ears. You feel your heartbeat and your breathing from the inside. You never get to step out of your body and see yourself the way others do. Then you look into a mirror, and for a moment you meet a stranger. Your reflection shows a face with familiar features. You can point to the nose, the mouth, the hair you know so well, but the angle and the expression often feel off. You see a version of yourself that only exists in glass. You try to fix your smile because it doesn't look right. You tilt your head and wonder if that's how you always look. A mirror can cause doubt because it reveals an identity you do not normally see. Think about your own voice. When you hear it played back from a recording, you might cringe. You say, "That's not me." But the recording is accurate. It captures the sound as others hear it. The voice you believe is yours sits inside your head, shaped by bones and tissue. The mirror creates the same kind of shock. It offers the version of you that others see every day. You spend most of your life unaware of that version, so each glance can feel like a surprise. You may stand in front of a mirror and suddenly feel self-aware. You think about posture, skin, hair, and the way your clothes sit on your body. You check for flaws. You study details no one else notices. Your brain begins to analyze. You leave the simple act of being and enter a state of judgment. There is a gap between who you feel like and what the mirror shows. The mind likes to think it knows itself, but reflection challenges that belief. The person in the mirror cannot show your thoughts, your humor, your kindness, or your fear. The face shows only the surface. You know you are more than surface, yet you cannot ignore the picture. It becomes part of identity, whether you agree or not. Now imagine the mirror from another angle. You look into a small handheld mirror and focus only on one eye. You do not see the full picture. You see a detail that becomes the whole. The mind fills the missing pieces, and sometimes it fills them with worry. A tiny mark or crease on your face can feel like a flaw because the mirror magnifies what you fear others might see. Mirrors also freeze the self. You hold still so you can get a clear look, but you are rarely still in real life. You move when you talk. You light up when you laugh. Emotion shifts your face every second. No mirror can show those changes the way others see them in motion. A mirror captures a moment. Identity does not live in a moment. People can feel uneasy when staring at their reflection for too long. There is a known effect called the strange face illusion. If you stare into your eyes in a dim mirror, your brain begins to alter the image. You may see distortions or unfamiliar shapes. The mind expects constant movement, so stillness becomes unsettling. The brain tries to fill the silence and ends up showing something strange. This discomfort hints at a deeper truth. You cannot fully see yourself from the outside. You rely on others to reflect a social identity back to you. A friend might say, "You always look confident, even when you feel nervous." A family member might say, "You have such a big heart," even when you doubt your own kindness. Their reflections build parts of you that no mirror can show. Think about a time someone showed you an old photo of yourself. You had a different hairstyle. Maybe you wore clothes you would not choose today. You might smile at the memory or feel embarrassed. You see a version of yourself that no longer exists. The mirror reminds you that the present self is the latest in a long line of changes. Identity keeps shifting even when you do not notice the change happening. In childhood, the mirror helps you learn that you are a person with a body. Babies do not recognize themselves at first. They tap the glass and try to touch the other baby. Over time, they realize the reflection moves when they move. That moment marks a step in developing a sense of self. The mirror teaches you that you exist as an object in the world. Later in life, mirrors become tools for self-presentation. You check before leaving the house because you care how others see you. Your reflection becomes part of your social awareness. That can shape confidence or insecurity. It can make you question what parts of you belong to you and what parts belong to the eyes of others. Mirrors can also carry emotion. A person recovering from illness may look into the mirror and feel surprised by how thin they became. Someone grieving might avoid the mirror because the face looks tired. Someone celebrating a milestone might look proudly at their reflection, seeing strength in their own eyes. The same glass surface can show joy, confusion, or sadness, depending on the day. There are rare neurological conditions where people do not recognize themselves in a mirror. They can list facts about who they are, but the reflection appears like another person. This shows how awareness and appearance connect, but remain separate parts of identity. The self is not a face. It is the awareness behind the face. Yet every morning you stand in front of a mirror and meet this strange version of you. You brush your teeth, you fix your hair, you prepare the mask you will show to others, and somewhere inside, a quiet thought may rise. Is that really me? People like to think personality is solid. We say things like, "That's just who I am." We believe our likes and dislikes stay the same. We talk about strengths and weaknesses as if they are permanent traits written deep inside us. But when you look closely, personality behaves more like an image made of tiny dots. Each choice, each habit, each reaction acts like a pixel. On its own, one pixel means nothing. Together, they form a picture that looks stable from a distance. Think about how you start your morning. Do you drink coffee or tea? Do you roll out of bed right away or scroll your phone first? These choices feel automatic. You rarely question them. Over time, they become part of how you describe yourself. You might say, "I'm not a morning person," but that identity grew out of a pattern of small behaviors. If you change those behaviors, the identity would shift too. Consider the way you greet people. Some offer a firm handshake. Others wave or smile. Some stay quiet until they feel safe. You may believe you are shy or outgoing based on these actions. Yet these behaviors formed from many small moments across years. Teachers who encouraged you, friends who welcomed you, times when a risk paid off or ended badly. Each moment added one more pixel to the picture of who you are. Personality questionnaires often ask simple questions. Do you prefer groups or being alone? Do you follow plans or go with the flow? Your answers depend on your mood, the situation, or the people involved. You might feel social at a birthday party, but quiet at a work event. You might love structure during a busy week and embrace spontaneity on vacation. The responses shift like pixels changing color. The picture changes too, but you still call it you. Imagine someone known for being calm. They handle problems with ease. People admire their steady nature, but this week, they feel stressed. Unexpected tasks pile up. A friend calls during a busy moment and they snap. Later they think, why did I act like that? That's not me. Yet it was them, just a version with a few pixels changed. One moment does not erase the picture, but it reminds us that personality is fluid. Think about clothing choices. One day, you wear bright colors. The next, you choose something darker. You might avoid patterns for months, then wake up and decide to try something bold. These shifts seem small, but each one expresses a tiny piece of how you want to be seen. The closet becomes a daily vote toward a version of yourself. Over time, the votes add up. Social roles also change the picture. At home, you might act relaxed. With friends, you might act funny. At work, you might show discipline and focus. None of these roles are fake. You are not pretending. You shift pixels to match the environment. A single photo cannot capture that range, yet each version feels real from the inside. Look at a child learning who they are. They try different activities. They experiment with attitudes. One week, they want to be a scientist. The next week, a musician. They model behavior from others. As they grow, habits stick. They keep the pixels that feel good and drop the ones that don't. Adults do the same, just more quietly. Even choices that seem random can become identity if repeated. Maybe you pick a certain seat in a cafe. You do it again next time. Soon that seat feels like your place. If someone else sits there, your brain reacts. You feel discomfort because the pattern broke. Identity likes patterns. It resists change even when change is small. Now picture someone scrolling through old photos. They see a version of themselves with a different hairstyle or posture. They remember how they felt during that time. They might say, "I can't believe I used to dress like that," or "I forgot how bold I once was." The photos show past arrangements of pixels. The picture changed, but the person stayed in the frame. Think about food preferences. Many people say they dislike a certain ingredient. Then one day, they try it again and realize their taste has changed. The mind updates the identity quietly. "I guess I like this now." What once felt certain dissolves with a single new experience. Even beliefs can shift this way. You might hold a strong opinion for years. Then a conversation with someone you trust adds one new pixel. A documentary adds another. A personal experience adds more. At first, nothing changes. Then one day, you notice the whole picture looks different. You did not flip overnight. You updated slowly. We often underestimate the role of chance. A random invitation leads to a new hobby. A casual compliment builds confidence. A single failure creates doubt. Small events influence personality more than dramatic ones. The brain takes notes constantly and adjusts the story each time. There is comfort in believing you have a solid personality. It offers a sense of stability. People can predict your behavior. You can predict your own reactions. But deep down, you know the picture changes. You notice it when you surprise yourself. You notice it when someone says, "I didn't know you liked that." And you reply, "I didn't either." Identity looks stable from afar, but walk closer and you see the pixels. Each day adds a new one. Each choice updates the image. Nothing is final. Nothing is fixed. The person you are right now is only the most recent version. If you try to locate the I inside your mind, you will not find a single place where the self lives. The brain controls movement, memory, language, emotion, and attention. But none of these systems claim to be you. They work together like a network. Signals move through neurons, chemicals fire, patterns form. But when scientists search for the exact spot where the self sits, they find no throne. There is no center that says, "This is me." You can notice this when you experience something automatic. You walk into a room and forget why you came. Your body brought you there, but the self cannot explain the reason. Later, the reason might pop back into mind without effort. The brain handles tasks behind the scenes. The self only hears about them once they become conscious. It feels like someone else is driving at times. Now think about reflexes. You touch something hot. Your hand pulls away before you think. The spinal cord reacts faster than awareness can keep up. You say, "I moved my hand," but the movement happened first. The self takes credit after the body already acted. This shows that the self is not in charge of every action. It often arrives late and explains what already happened. Memory gives another clue. You can recall a scene from childhood, but the memory lives in fragments spread across the brain. One region stores the sight of your birthday cake. Another holds the sound of voices singing. Another carries the warmth you felt. The feeling of "that was me" comes after the brain assembles the pieces. The self feels like a solid thread, but the thread is woven from separate parts. Consider language. When you think in words, it may feel like you are speaking to yourself, but language comes from several areas working together. The brain forms sentences faster than you can notice the parts. Sometimes words spill out in conversation before you fully know what you want to say. The self hears the sentence and thinks, "I chose those words," even though the brain built the sentence without asking for permission. There is a test in neuroscience called the readiness potential. It measures brain activity before a person decides to move. The brain shows signs of preparing an action milliseconds before the person becomes aware of choosing. Self feels like the source of decisions, yet the brain seems to start the process first. The self then steps in and claims authorship. Imagine a person with brain injury that affects their awareness. They may deny that a limb belongs to them. Their hand moves, but they describe it as someone else's. This condition, known as alien hand syndrome, shows that the sense of self does not come from the limb, but from how the brain links intention to movement. If the link breaks, ownership disappears. Or think about split brain patients. In certain cases, the connection between the left and right sides of the brain is cut to treat severe epilepsy. After surgery, each hemisphere can act independently. One hand may button a shirt while the other unbuttons it. The left hand may reach for an object the right hand does not want. When asked why they acted, the person may invent a reason that sounds logical. Self creates stories to maintain a single identity, even when control is divided. The storyteller inside you wants coherence, even when the truth is messy. There are also moments when you lose track of the self entirely. During deep focus or meditation, you may feel absorbed in an activity. You forget your name, your plans, even the sense of being a separate person. Time feels different. When awareness returns, you say you were in the zone. This shows the self can fade without disappearing. It is not a constant presence. It comes online when needed. Dreams push this further. In a dream, you act without questioning who you are. You feel emotions strongly. You believe strange events make sense. Then you wake up and realize the self accepted a world that now seems impossible. The brain created a version of you through imagination, yet it still felt like you while it happened. The self can shift and stretch far more than we notice while awake. The brain builds the self by combining different functions into a single experience of being someone. Consciousness integrates signals into a smooth story. You feel like one person living a continuous life, but if you break down the systems, you find independent parts doing their jobs. The self does not appear as a structure in the brain. It appears as the result of coordination. Try to watch your thoughts for a moment. Thoughts rise on their own. You do not choose the first image or word that enters your mind. If a random memory appears, you observe it. You can decide whether to follow it or let it fade. The observer feels real, but the origin of the thoughts does not ask for approval. The eye who watches and the mind that produces experience are not the same. The self also changes depending on context. With family, you may feel like a different person than you do with coworkers. Your tone shifts. Your posture shifts. Your humor changes. None of these roles are lies. They show that the self adapts. It builds a version that fits the moment, then dissolves that version when the moment ends. Stability comes from continuity, not from a fixed core. If you had to define yourself right now, you might use your job, your beliefs, your relationships, or your past. But each of those parts can change. If you lose a job or change your mind about something important, the self updates. The brain rewrites the story to keep you whole. The narrative feels smooth even when the edits run deep. The search for the self inside the brain becomes like trying to find the color green inside a screen. You can identify pixels that emit light. You can study how signals create the image, but the green does not live in a single pixel. It lives in the pattern. The self works the same way. It lives in the pattern of all the activity, not in one place. You wake up each day with the feeling that you are the same person you were yesterday. You remember your name. You remember where you live. You carry your past with you, like a long folder of files stored somewhere in your mind. But if you look closer, the version of you that opens its eyes this morning is not the same as the one who fell asleep last night. Your brain takes in new experiences, learns new information, and adjusts its internal settings. Identity updates while you live your life. Think about how your phone updates. You install a new feature. You fix old bugs you never noticed. The background changes even when the home screen looks familiar. The brain works the same way. Neural pathways shift as you think and act. Habits form or weaken. Attitudes expand or harden. The person you are today includes lines of code that did not exist before. Take a simple example. You try a new food at lunch. Before that bite, your brain stored the belief, I don't like this. After the bite, that belief might change. You may now say, actually, I enjoy it. A tiny update rolls out in the system. It seems small, but enough tiny changes can alter the whole interface. Memory updates often. You remember someone as unkind because of a single negative moment. Then they surprise you with a thoughtful gesture. The brain redraws its profile of them. You update your relationship story. The new memory patches the old one. The stored version of that person changes, and your own identity shifts with it. Even personality traits get updates. You may call yourself an introvert because you feel drained by social events, but one day you attend a gathering that feels fun and easy. You leave thinking, maybe I do enjoy this sometimes. The brain adds new data. The category becomes less strict. The self becomes more flexible. You can see updates during stressful times. A person who once thought of themselves as calm might face a sudden challenge. They panic. Afterward, they question the calm identity that once felt secure. The system updates to include the discovery, I can struggle too. That update does not erase the calm version, but it adds a layer to the code. Sometimes updates come from accidents. You lose something you thought you needed. You adapt. You cope. You discover a strength you never saw in yourself. The update arrives without permission. The self adjusts to include resilience you did not plan to learn. Other updates come from people. Spend enough time with someone confident, and you may pick up their phrases or posture. Their influence integrates into your code. Friends act like software patches. They help you run smoother in certain areas. They challenge outdated beliefs. They add features you never considered. Change also happens when old patterns break. You might wake up one morning and realize a habit no longer fits your life. You stop saying yes to every request. You set boundaries. The brain logs those changes. It installs a new version of you who protects time and energy more carefully. Some updates are invisible. You watch a movie or read a book that changes how you think about fairness or love. You hold that idea quietly. The shift appears later in your behavior. A choice reflects the new code. You say something more thoughtful. You listen with more patience. You may not notice the source, but the update worked. There are moments when you look back at old versions of yourself and feel disbelief. You see past behaviors that no longer make sense. You wonder why you once cared so much about something that now feels small. The old version feels like outdated software that would crash if you tried to run it today. You grew, you replaced parts of yourself. You left some attitudes behind, like abandoned files. Think about someone scrolling through social media posts from years ago. They cringe at their old jokes or opinions. They feel distance from the person who wrote them. That distance shows how much has updated. Identity changed so smoothly each day that the shift only shows up when you compare versions far apart. Updates can also slow down when life feels repetitive, when routines repeat for long stretches. The self changes very little. You may feel stuck, like your software can no longer update. But even then, the background process continues. Small interactions still influence you. You still learn and adapt. The version number keeps ticking upward. The brain likes stability. It builds a sense of continuity, so you feel like one person across time. But when something big happens, moving to a new city, ending a relationship, losing someone you love, the update might be large enough that you feel different overnight. The old code no longer works. You redesign the interface. You rewrite internal rules. You emerge unsure of the new features, but you keep moving. The self is not a finished product. It is a system that responds to input. Every conversation, every choice, every mistake pushes an update. You remain familiar, but not fixed. The person you are becoming quietly downloads in the background. You wake up and the world appears again. Light fills your eyes. You remember your name. You remember what day it is. Your mind starts moving, and it feels like the same mind that fell asleep last night. But the experience of self may not run as one smooth stream. It might restart every moment, like a looping program that keeps refreshing the screen fast enough that you do not see the breaks. Look at how attention works. You focus on one thing at a time. When you read a sentence, your mind jumps from word to word. Your eyes stop for a split second, then move to the next spot. The brain fills those pauses, so reading feels fluid. The same thing happens with awareness. It updates rapidly, and the gaps disappear behind the scenes. Think about blinking. You close your eyes thousands of times a day. During each blink, vision cuts out. You never notice the darkness because the brain edits it away. If someone showed you a video with frames missing, you would notice the jump. But when the brain skips a frame, it hides the glitch. It stitches experience into one seamless movie. Consciousness may do the same thing. Each moment, your brain collects signals from senses and memory, then creates a picture of the present. Once it finishes that frame, it lets it go. The next frame comes fast. You do not feel the reset, but it happens over and over. The experience of now lasts only a breath, and the next now replaces it. Imagine a spinning wheel of images. In old animations, artists drew separate pictures and flipped them fast enough that the character looked alive. A single drawing was not the character. The illusion came from the sequence. Awareness works like that. You are not one long note. You are a string of short notes played with no silence between them. You can notice this during moments of confusion. When you walk into a room and forget why, the link between frames seems broken. The story resets. You stand still and wait for the brain to rebuild the thread. When it does, the feeling of continuity returns. The loop resumes. The moment before fades like a deleted file. Memory plays a major role in creating the illusion of a steady self. Each new moment draws on recent information. When you reach for a glass, the brain remembers where your hand was 1 second ago. Without that memory buffer, movement would fail. You would feel like a new person every few seconds, lost in a fresh world with no history. Take dreams as an example. When you dream, you accept sudden location changes without asking questions. One moment you are at a beach, the next you stand in a hallway. You feel no confusion because the continuity engine is different there. The brain does not link scenes with logic. It just plays frames one after another. And you accept the jump as normal. Waking life hides the jumps better, so the illusion feels solid. There are times when the loop slows down and you see the gaps. During trauma, seconds can stretch. During fear, time feels like it moves in pieces. You notice each heartbeat. Each frame becomes sharp and separate. The mind switches from fluid awareness to snapshots. You remember the details because the loop runs differently. Flow states show the opposite. When you feel fully absorbed in a task, you lose the sense of time. You stop watching each moment arrive. Instead, awareness becomes smooth and wide. You do not think about yourself. You do not check whether the loop continues. You act, and consciousness follows without interruption. Sometimes the brain glitches so much that it feels like waking from a daydream. You drive home and cannot remember the last few miles. Your hands steered, your eyes watched the road. But your awareness was somewhere else. When consciousness snaps back, you feel like you rebooted. The loop continued in the background while the self paused. Even identity depends on this reset cycle. If every moment felt totally separate, you could not say I with confidence. The word would have no anchor. Instead, the brain creates a sense of ownership from one moment to the next. It passes the baton fast, like runners in a relay. Each new moment holds on to the idea that you are the same person who owned the last moment. This handoff can be fragile. There are neurological conditions where the self does not transfer cleanly. Some people with certain forms of amnesia wake up often with no memory of what happened before. They rebuild identity from scratch each time. The loop runs, but the continuity does not carry over. It shows how much work the brain does to maintain the illusion of one life. You can see the loop restart every day when you wake up. For a second, you do not know where you are. You do not know the time. The mind loads information like a computer powering on. Then the room becomes familiar again. The brain retrieves the right files. The story continues, and the sense of I clicks back into place. You trust continuity because the reboot happens fast and smooth. You do not notice the system refresh. You do not watch the code run, but each moment stands alone until the mind links it to the next. The chain feels unbroken because the breaks vanish in the stitching. You experience one present at a time, then let it go. And the next one arrives, and the next. The loop keeps running. You spend your life thinking you control your body. You decide when to move. You decide when to speak. Your mind feels like the leader, but the body gives the brain constant information that shapes who you believe yourself to be. Muscles, posture, breathing, and heartbeat all send signals upward. The brain listens. The body guides. Identity becomes a conversation between the two. Imagine walking into a room full of strangers. Before you say a word, your shoulders may lift. Your back may tighten. Your eyes scan the room. Your brain receives a clear message. I am unsure right now. The brain did not create the feeling first. The body reacted. The body speaks its own language, and the mind translates the message into emotion. Now think about confidence. When you feel sure of yourself, you stand taller. You hold your head up. You make eye contact. But this also works the other way. If you stand taller first, you may start to feel confident later. The brain reads posture like a script and adjusts the story. Researchers call this embodied cognition. The body's state changes the mind's experience, not just the other way around. You can notice this in small actions. When someone smiles at you, your own mouth might lift slightly before you think. The muscles move. The brain receives feedback. Something pleasant is happening. You feel a little lighter. A small motion shifts identity toward a person who feels welcomed. Consider someone who feels anxious. Their breathing grows shallow. Their heart speeds up. Their palms sweat. The brain sees these signs and might push the thought, something is wrong. Even if the situation is safe, the body's alarm shapes the mind. The person believes they are anxious because the body told them so. The link can go deeper. When you are sick, you feel like a different version of yourself. You may lose patience more easily. You may withdraw from others. You may think, this is not me. Yet the body's state changes how the mind sees the world. The immune system influences mood. Pain interrupts attention. Illness edits personality without asking permission. Picture a person learning to dance. At first, the moves feel awkward. The brain works hard to coordinate each step. Over time, the body remembers the rhythms. Movements become fluid. The dancer might say, I feel like myself when I dance. Their identity expands to include skill and flow. The body teaches the mind something new about who they are. Or think about sports. An athlete defines themselves by speed or strength. A runner says, I am fast. A swimmer says, I am strong in water. These identities come from physical ability. If injury takes away that ability, the mind struggles. The person may say, I don't know who I am without this. The body once told a clear story. When the story changes, identity must rewrite itself. Even simple gestures carry meaning. Crossing your arms can make you feel guarded. Relaxing your jaw can ease tension. These shifts seem tiny, yet the brain listens closely. It interprets each signal as part of the ongoing narrative of self. Consider eye gaze. When you look down, the world feels bigger than you. When you look forward, the world feels level with you. When you look up, the world feels within reach. Where the eyes point changes how the mind measures possibility. Your heartbeat also participates in identity. When it speeds up because of excitement, you might think, this means I care. When it speeds up from fear, you think, this means danger. The sensation is the same. The brain creates the meaning based on context. The body provides the raw data. The mind crafts the story. Habit shapes the self through repetition. If you always sit in the same chair at dinner, that place becomes part of your identity in the home. If you always take the same path on a walk, that route becomes your routine. Your muscles know the pattern. You feel strange when something disrupts it. The body expects familiarity. The mind agrees. Try changing something small. Switch the hand you use to brush your teeth. Place your phone in a different pocket. You may feel off balance. You might reach for the old spot without thinking. These moments show how much your body remembers. You trust that memory more often than you notice. Language depends on the body too. The mouth shapes words. The tongue or hands move to form communication. Even in sign language, the body expresses identity. Someone who speaks softly might feel shy. Someone who uses wide gestures might feel open or bold. The style becomes part of who they think they are. You learn selfhood from how others respond to your body. As a child, if someone laughs when you make a funny face, you learn that you are funny. If someone praises your careful hands, you learn that you are gentle. Reactions to movement become beliefs about character. The world sees the body, and the mind absorbs the feedback. Posture can even change memory. Studies show that sitting up straight makes it easier to recall positive moments. Slouching brings more negative thoughts. The brain connects body position and emotional recall. A simple physical shift can change what you remember as true. Technology adds new layers. Phones buzz in pockets and shape posture. Screens tilt heads forward. These repeated positions affect mood and attention. A body bent over a screen might tell the brain, "Be small, stay quiet, keep inside." The digital world influences the choreography without being seen as part of identity. Think about how you walk when you are excited. Your pace speeds up. You swing your arms a little more. You take up space. You feel like someone who moves with purpose. Now think about walking when you feel uncertain. The body slows down. Arms stay close. You shrink into a smaller shape. Identity shifts with each step. Your body also remembers experiences you forget. A certain smell may tense your muscles because long ago you faced something scary during that smell. You may not recall the event, but your body does. It signals the brain without giving the reason. The brain follows the signal and adds it into the present self. When someone practices deep breathing, the heart slows. The brain sees the calm breathing pattern and says, "We are safe." The person starts to feel steady. They might believe they chose calm, but the body led the way first. The choreography of me runs all day long. Muscles, breath, heart, and posture move together. They shape thoughts and identity with every motion. The brain watches the dance and decides who you are, frame by frame. You might believe there is one you inside your mind, one clear voice that knows what you want, one ruler in charge of choices. But when you pay attention, you notice something different. There are many voices, many urges, many opinions. Some push for risk, some hold back, some want comfort, others want change. The self starts to look less like a single speaker and more like a committee meeting that never adjourns. Picture a simple decision. You see a dessert you like. One part of you says yes because it tastes good. Another part says no because you want to stay healthy. A third part offers a compromise, maybe only a small slice. The decision that comes out feels like my choice, but several internal voices work together to reach that answer. This happens all day long. You think, "I should finish this work." Then another thought interrupts, "I want to rest." You feel pulled between the task and the break. The meeting inside continues. When one part wins, you call it willpower. When another part wins, you call it giving in. But both parts belong to you. The brain has many systems that guide behavior. Some are fast and automatic. They react before you think. Others take time. They look ahead and plan. These systems debate. The fast one might say, "Buy this now." The slow one might say, "Wait, You don't need it. If you pause, the slow one has a chance to speak. If you rush, the fast one takes over. Memory adds more voices. One memory warns, remember how you felt last time you trusted that person. Another says, yes, but this time could be better. Past versions of you step into the room to offer advice. They ask to be heard because they lived through lessons you should not forget. Emotion takes a seat at the table too. Anger may push you to argue. Fear may suggest silence. Joy may encourage a bold move. All these emotions speak as if they each know what is best. None of them have the full picture. The body even gets a vote. Hunger, exhaustion, and pain shape choices. You might think, I am being short-tempered, when the truth is that a tired body sends signals that impact mood. The tired part of you argues for rest. The ambitious part tells you to keep going. You weigh both and act. Imagine a friend invites you to a gathering. One voice says yes because you need connection. Another says no because social events drain you. A third voice remembers the last good time you had with that friend. A fourth reminds you of the awkward moment that still makes you cringe. The decision will not come from one voice winning. It comes from listening to the whole group. Sometimes one voice grows too loud. Anxiety can dominate the meeting and drown other opinions. The anxious voice works hard to protect you, but it can overreach. It may warn you of danger that does not exist. Therapy often teaches how to lower the volume of certain voices so the meeting becomes fair again. There are people who name their internal parts to understand them better. They say, this is the part of me that wants safety, or this is the part that wants to explore. Seeing each voice as a part of the whole can help decisions feel less confusing. The goal is not to silence any part, but to give each the right amount of influence. Look at a child learning who they are. They like many things at once. They want to run outside and also stay glued to a screen. They switch between feelings fast because their internal voices all speak loudly. Adults learn to organize the voices and create order. But the voices never go away. They just become quieter and more practiced. Consider a moment of regret. You might say, why did I do that? That's not like me. But it was you, just a different part in charge at that time. The committee made a choice that another part of you later questioned. You feel the conflict because different voices have different priorities. Now imagine someone taking a big risk, like quitting a job or ending a relationship. One voice in them asks for growth. Another voice begs for stability. For days or weeks, they go back and forth. When they finally act, they say, I chose this, even though the choice was a long negotiation. The committee reached a decision, but not without tension. Even identity statements come from negotiation. You say, I am the responsible person, but you also remember times when you were careless. You say, I am kind, but you recall moments when you were short with someone. The parts of you that do not fit the identity still exist. They sit quietly until a situation lets them speak again. Think about self-control. When you resist temptation, you give power to the voice that thinks long-term. When you give in, you allow the present-focused voice to decide. Neither moment defines you alone. Personality forms from the pattern of which voices you listen to most often, not from one decision. There are days when the internal meeting feels chaotic. You cannot decide what you want. You change your mind often. You feel pulled in opposite directions. This does not mean you lack identity. It means you contain many possibilities. You manage them. There are also days when the voices align. The whole committee supports a single path. You feel clear and steady. You say, I know who I am. The peace comes from harmony, not simplicity. The self is not a solo performer. It is a team with shifting leadership. Each member tries to protect you in different ways. Each learned its role from experience. Every choice you make reflects months or years of those roles interacting. The negotiation continues with every decision, every emotion, every thought. You are not only one voice, you are the entire room. You wake up each morning and step into a story that already feels underway. You know the main character well. The character has a name, a history, and a set of traits. The character likes certain foods, avoids certain situations, and holds certain beliefs. That character is you. It feels solid and familiar, but when you look closely, the self behaves more like a story than a thing. The mind builds a narrative to hold everything together. And the narrative feels so convincing that you rarely question it. Think about how you explain yourself to others. You say, "I am shy," or "I am stubborn," or "I am the type of person who speaks up." These statements summarize years of experience into a simple line. They turn complicated patterns into a clean identity. But people change. Someone shy can learn to feel comfortable in crowds. Someone once stubborn can become open to new ideas. When the behavior shifts, the narrative shifts too. The character rewrites itself. Memory plays a central role in this story. You remember the times you succeeded, the times you failed, and the times that embarrassed you. You pick and choose events that seem important. Those memories become the chapters that shape the plot. Yet memory is unreliable. It changes with mood, time, and retelling. You do not store your life as accurate facts. You store it as a narrative that protects your sense of self. When a detail does not fit the story you believe, the mind edits it out. Imagine two people who grew up in the same home. They shared experiences. They attended the same school. But ask them to describe their childhood, and the stories may sound completely different. One might say, "We had a warm and happy home." The other might say, "It always felt tense." Each builds a self from the same raw material, but tells a different story. Their memories act as supporting evidence for their chosen narrative. Even the present becomes part of the script. When something happens to you, the first thought might be, "What does this say about me?" If you lose your temper, you might think, "I am not patient." If you help someone, you might think, "I am kind." The mind turns actions into traits. It converts momentary behavior into identity. And once the narrative forms, you look for more scenes that confirm it. Consider a person who believes they are unlucky. They remember every time something goes wrong. They tell those stories to themselves often. When something goes well, they forget the moment quickly because it does not match the plot. The self becomes a character who is always unlucky. The belief feels true because the story favors evidence that supports it. The self also needs a stable plotline. The brain dislikes randomness. It prefers reasons. That is why you explain your actions even when you did not plan them. You might act on impulse, then come up with a reason after the fact. The mind performs a trick called confabulation. It fills gaps with explanations that sound logical. You do not think of this as fiction. You believe the story because you tell it in your own voice. Look at how people describe life events. They say things like, "This happened for a reason," or "It changed who I am." Humans want cause and effect. The mind tries to connect scenes into a meaningful arc, even when events could be random. The narrative comforts us. It tells us we know who we are and where we are going. Sometimes the story shifts sharply. A breakup, a loss, or a decision can force a rewrite. You might look back at a past period of your life and see a different meaning in it. You might say, I thought I was happy then, but now I see I was scared. The facts stay the same, but the interpretation changes. The narrator updates the script. There are times when the story struggles. You experience something that does not match who you believe you are. Maybe you act selfishly when you thought you were generous. Maybe you freeze when you thought you were brave. That moment causes tension. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. The self needs consistency, so the mind tries to explain the moment away. It says, I was tired. Or that situation was different. The narrative repairs itself. People also shift roles based on context. You may feel responsible at work and playful with friends. You may feel confident in one environment and unsure in another. The story adapts to each situation. Identity becomes a set of overlapping narratives rather than one pure truth. The self feels whole, but the parts often disagree. Even the future becomes a storyline. You imagine yourself achieving goals or changing in certain ways. You picture who you might become. Those imagined scenes guide choices. The future self influences the present self. You are not only the story you have told, you are also the story you plan to write. If you strip away the narrative, what remains? You find the raw experiences, sensations, emotions, and thoughts that rise and fall each moment. None of them stay long enough to form a stable core. The brain gives them order by inserting a character who owns them. It says, I feel this, I think that. The word I acts like a thread, sewing the moments together. The self feels real because the story never stops. It updates constantly. It blends memory, emotion, and attention into something that looks like a person with a clear past and a stable identity. But when you pause and observe your thoughts closely, you may notice a gap. The story continues, but you can watch it happen. And the part of you that watches is different from the character in the narrative. The mind tells a story called me, and the story believes itself. When you think about your personality, you may picture something original. You feel like a person shaped from the inside out. You believe your habits, your humor, and your values belong uniquely to you. But identity forms through contact. You absorb parts of others without noticing. The way you speak, gesture, joke, comfort, argue, and hope comes from faces that once stood close to yours. You become a collection of borrowed traits, stitched together across years of influence. Think about the first people you ever knew. You copied your caregiver's expressions long before you understood their meaning. If they smiled often, you learned that smiles invite warmth. If they spoke softly, you learned that calm tones keep peace. These early figures did not just guide you, they became part of you. Their style of being entered your brain as a template. Now imagine the voices of friends you grew up with. You might hear old slang slip out of your mouth. Even today, certain jokes feel familiar because someone once said them to you and you liked the sound. When you laugh a certain way, you may be repeating a sound you first heard on a playground. You did not choose that laugh. You inherited it through shared moments. Influence builds across time. A teacher praises the way you solve a problem. You start solving more problems that way. A coach teaches you how to stand tall when you feel nervous. You hold that posture in meetings as an adult. A sibling makes fun of a mistake. You learn to hide similar mistakes from others. These small encounters leave marks. The brain records social learning because it wants to belong. Consider how behavior travels between people. Spend time with someone who talks quickly, and you start to match their speed. Spend time with someone who pauses before responding, and you slow down too. If a friend becomes excited about an idea, you might borrow their excitement. You align with others to keep connections strong. This is not imitation, it is survival. Social mirroring helps people understand each other. Sometimes you see a gesture or phrase in yourself and realize that came from a person you have not seen in years. An old coworker, a childhood friend, a relative who is no longer alive. Their influence travels forward through you. They become part of your identity even after the relationship ends. You also borrow from stories. Characters in books or movies offer models for bravery, humor, or curiosity. You may adopt a line or a habit from someone who never existed as a real person. The brain does not separate fiction and reality when it finds a behavior that works. It adds the behavior to your toolbox. Culture shapes identity too. The way you greet someone, the foods you crave, and what you consider polite or rude are learned from the group around you. You inherit a script and act it out in daily life. Even if you break from the script, the break shows the influence of what you pushed against. Every rule you reject first existed in you as guidance. Consider the people who challenge you. Someone who questions your beliefs may force you to think more clearly. Someone who disagrees may sharpen your opinions. They change you by resisting you. Influence does not always feel kind, but it still shapes the mind. Sometimes borrowing creates inner conflict. You might hold two traits that do not agree because they came from different parts of your past. A parent taught you to stay careful. A friend taught you to take chances. In some moments, the careful part leads. In others, the daring part steps forward. The self becomes a series of borrowed strategies that negotiate depending on the situation. Look at how accents evolve. You may speak differently at home than at school or work. Your voice shifts toward whichever group you want to connect with. The brain treats similarity as a bridge. Even language, which feels deeply personal, shows the blending of many influences. Pain leaves traces too. If someone once criticized your laugh, you might laugh quieter now. If someone once judged your dream, you might speak about your goals with caution. These changes feel like self-protection, but they also come from other people's words, shaping your sense of safety. Support leaves traces as well. If someone once believed in you before you believed in yourself, their voice may still echo when you doubt. You might hear them say, "You can do this," years after they last stood beside you. That encouragement becomes part of your inner guidance. Even strangers contribute. A kind gesture in a store can make you more patient with others that day. A rude driver can make you tense for hours. These brief contacts push identity a little in one direction or another. Influence accumulates quietly. Sometimes you meet someone who feels familiar right away. They remind you of a friend from long ago, or they carry an expression you once trusted. Your brain links the new person with the old influence. You feel you already know them because a borrowed piece recognizes itself. Your identity feels stable because the narrative holds together. This stability includes many people's fingerprints. You carry a parent's phrase, a friend's courage, a coach's discipline, a stranger's generosity. You move through the world wearing countless borrowed faces, assembled into something that feels like one human being. You do not lose yourself by absorbing others. You become yourself through them. Every influence shapes a piece of the story you are still learning to understand. Most of the time, You move through life without noticing the role you play. You speak, react, and choose based on habits formed long ago. You think this behavior is natural, that it comes directly from your inner truth. But identity often forms the same way a character in a play forms, through scripts, expectations, and earlier scenes. You inherit cues from family, school, culture, and chance. You learn your part before you know what acting is. Imagine a child who learns early that they get praised when they help others. They become the helper. They offer solutions. They carry emotional weight. They feel responsible for keeping everyone calm. They do not ask why. They step into the role and play it well. Years later, they still help everyone first, even when they feel tired or overwhelmed. The role shapes choices until one day they notice they have been living inside a character who says yes, even when the true self wants to rest. Or picture someone known for always being the funny one. They learn to deliver jokes, to lighten tension, to distract from pain. They become an expert at keeping things cheerful. But sometimes the humor becomes a shield. They hide real feelings behind laughter because the role tells them, people like you only when you make them laugh. The character becomes more important than the person playing the part. Roles form from repetition. If people around you react in a certain way, you adjust to fit the pattern. If someone expects you to be responsible, you may agree without noticing. If someone expects you to stay quiet, you may hold your voice inside, even when you have something important to say. The world writes lines for you. You learn them because belonging often depends on cooperation. A role can feel comfortable. It gives direction. It tells you what kind of behavior earns approval. But comfort can turn into confinement. You may stay inside the role long after it stops serving you. You might not question it until something forces you to see the character from the outside. Think about the way people talk to you. A friend says, "You're always so calm." And you nod even though you feel anxious inside. A coworker says, "You never lose your temper," even though you swallow frustration often. The comments reinforce the role. You perform calmness because it is expected. You start to believe this is who you must always be. Family roles run deep. In a group of siblings, one becomes the brave one becomes the smart one becomes the funny one. These roles form early and can last for decades. At reunions, grown adults slip back into childhood positions because the script still lives in the family dynamic. You might notice yourself acting younger or quieter around relatives. It happens without effort. The character steps forward. Even birth order influences roles. Firstborn children often become leaders or caretakers. Youngest children learn to charm their way through challenges. These patterns shape behavior before personality has fully formed. The role becomes the lens through which others see you and through which you learn to see yourself. Social groups create roles too. At work, you may be the one who organizes tasks. With friends, you may be the listener. In a relationship, you may be the planner or the peacekeeper. Each environment asks for a certain version of you. Moving between groups can feel like stepping between stages, changing costumes, but keeping the performance smooth so no one notices the shift. Sometimes roles develop from a single moment. A student answers a question correctly, and others begin to refer to them as the smart one. They work hard to keep that image alive. Another student makes a mistake during a presentation and becomes the nervous one. They fear future speaking because the role seems fixed. One scene becomes the opening line of a long-running script. You may hold roles you did not choose. Someone once called you stubborn, and the label followed. Someone once called you shy, and the identity stuck. Roles can grow from misunderstanding, yet still shape behavior. A person seen as independent might struggle to ask for help because the character they play does not need support. The strangest part is how long you can live inside a character without noticing. You wake up one day and realize you have been saying lines you did not write. You feel a quiet tension between the role you perform and the voice inside you. That tension can show up in simple ways. You say yes to an invitation and later wonder why. You tell people you are fine when you are not. You adjust to make others comfortable and feel confusion afterward. Awareness often arrives during change. A move to a new place introduces an audience that does not yet know your part. They wait for you to show them who you are. The freedom can feel exciting or scary. You can rewrite the character, but the old role may whisper reminders of who you were supposed to be. Breakups or new jobs can trigger the same shift. When a relationship ends, the role you played disappears. You no longer act as the supporter or the caretaker or the one who always says yes. You must figure out who you are without that script. It can feel like waking up on stage with the lights on and no lines to speak. There are moments when you watch yourself in action, almost like a performer. You hear your own voice and think, I sound like my father, or I'm acting like that teacher I admired. Those flashes reveal the construction. You notice the costume seams. The role can evolve instead of disappearing. You can choose which lines to keep. The helper can learn boundaries. The quiet one can practice speaking. The funny one can let sadness show when needed. The self can step into the spotlight rather than letting the character run the show. Changing a role takes time because others may resist. People feel comfortable when you stay predictable. If you stop always saying yes, someone might be surprised or even upset. They expect the character they know, but resisting feedback can be the first moment the real self takes the stage. There is no problem with playing roles. Everyone does. Roles help us connect. They help us function in groups. The challenge comes when you forget that the role is a role. When you assume the character is the same as the self. When you perform without noticing the script. When you believe the mask must be worn at all times. Life gives you many parts across years. Some last only a short time. Some feel like lifelong commitments. Some fall away as you change. The important shift happens when you see the part, recognize the performance, and realize you can rewrite the scene. At some point, you wake up inside the character. You see the stage you have been standing on. You understand that the role was learned, not born. And from that moment forward, you receive an invitation you did not know you had, to step toward the version of yourself you choose, not the one you were assigned. Most days, your mind feels steady. You know your name, your plans, and how to move from one task to another. You trust memory to guide you. You trust attention to keep you on track. You trust identity to stay in place. But the sense of self shows its true nature when it slips. A glitch appears, and the system flickers. For a brief second, the stable I disappears, and you see how fragile it really is. Picture a moment when you walk into a room and forget why you came. You stand still. Your eyes search the space for clues. You feel a gap between intention and awareness. It is a small glitch, yet uncomfortable. The self thinks it knows what it wants at every moment, but then it loses the thread. That pause shows the self does not run the show as smoothly as it claims. Consider when you call someone by the wrong name. You know who they are, but the wrong label slips out. You correct yourself quickly, but the mistake echoes. The mind reveals how it sorts people into categories and sometimes pulls the wrong file. The feeling of "how could I say that?" comes from seeing the gap between your sense of control and what actually happened. There are times when you forget a familiar word. You can describe the object, you can visualize it, you can mime its use, but the word stays locked away. You say, "It's on the tip of my tongue." The glitch exposes how language and identity connect. Your ability to speak shapes how you understand yourself. When language falters, you feel the edges of your own mind. Think about how you sometimes forget where you placed your phone. You check the same spot twice, as though the object might appear if you stare long enough. You question your own memory. Were you distracted earlier? Did someone move it? The glitch reminds you that the self relies on prediction and routine. When those predictions fail, identity feels less grounded. Then there are bigger glitches. Moments when you look in a mirror and do not feel like yourself. You recognize your face, but something seems strange. You stare a second longer, waiting for the connection to return. The mind takes your appearance for granted until the sense of self shifts. That shift shows that the brain must constantly align the inner identity with the physical body. When the alignment slips, confusion rushes in. You might also feel a glitch when you reread something you wrote years ago. The tone sounds off. The beliefs feel outdated. You wonder, who was that? The memory of being yourself no longer fits the current version. The glitch exposes that identity evolves faster than you notice. The person you once called me now feels like a different character. Dreams create some of the clearest glitches. In a dream, you accept strange events without question. You fly, or argue with someone who has been gone for years, or walk through rooms that do not exist. You believe the dream self is you until you wake. The glitch appears when daylight arrives and the brain switches operating modes. You say, "I can't believe I thought that was real." Yet it felt real while it happened. The self adapts quickly to context, even when the context is impossible. Moments of déjà vu offer another type of glitch. You feel like you have lived the exact moment before. You search for the memory that matches it, but find nothing. The mind briefly mixes signals between familiarity and novelty. The glitch shows how much identity depends on a clean timeline. When the sense of time stutters, selfhood stutters with it. Social glitches reveal hidden parts of the self. You may speak in a tone you did not plan. You may react strongly to a harmless comment. You hear yourself and think, "Why did I respond that way?" The glitch exposes internal conflicts that stay quiet until something hits the right nerve. These moments show that the self contains layers you do not notice until they surface. Strong emotion can trigger bigger glitches. Fear may override logic. Anger may silence patience. Grief may change how the world looks. In those states, you might say things you never thought you would say. You might feel like a stranger to yourself. The glitch reveals that identity shifts with how the nervous system interprets danger or safety. time itself can glitch. You drive a familiar route and reach your destination without remembering the details of the trip. The body moved, the mind drifted, the conscious self stepped aside. When awareness returns, you feel unsettled. You know you are in control, but the memory has gaps. The glitch shows that much of life happens outside awareness. Technology introduces new glitches. You write a comment online and hesitate before hitting send. For a moment, you feel two versions of yourself: the one who wants to speak and the one who wants to hide. The glitch reveals how identity changes depending on audience. The digital self and the physical self overlap, but do not always agree. There are moments when you suddenly feel like life is happening without you. You watch yourself doing something and feel distant from the action. Psychologists call this dissociation. It might last only a second. Your hands move, your voice speaks, but the I that usually drives seems to sit in the back seat. When the glitch ends, the world clicks into place again. The self also glitches when habit takes control. You reach into the fridge without knowing what you want. You scroll your phone without memory of choosing to. The action runs on autopilot. The self catches up later and labels the choice as intentional. The glitch reveals how often the self writes the story after the fact. Even laughter can glitch. Sometimes you laugh at something that is not funny, or you fail to laugh at something that is. The reaction does not fit the situation. The glitch exposes that emotions do not always follow the script the self expects. You may feel the biggest glitch during a sudden reflection, a moment when you pause, look at your life, and ask, "How did I get here?" The question pulls you out of automatic living. It shows that you can live for long stretches without examining the character you play. The glitch disrupts the illusion of certainty. It asks you to look at the story instead of acting inside it. Every glitch, small or large, reveals the same truth. The self is not a flawless machine. It is a fragile process that updates constantly and hopes you won't notice the gaps. But the gaps are where the real understanding lives. When you look at the world, it feels like you stand apart from it. You see trees, buildings, and other people. You feel like an observer looking out from behind your eyes. The world is out there and you are in here. But if you trace everything back far enough, your brain and your body come from the same place as stars, oceans, and dirt. The boundary between self and world begins to look thinner than it feels. Consciousness might be the universe noticing its own existence. Start with the basic facts. The atoms that make up your blood and bones formed in stars. Your brain cells fire because of signals powered by sunlight captured in food. When you speak or think or laugh, the energy moving through you is the same energy that moves tides and lights the sky. You are not separate from the universe. You are part of it, arranged in a way that can think. Consider the experience of hearing a sound. Vibrations travel through air, reach your ears, and turn into nerve signals. The brain interprets those signals as music, speech, or noise. Without a brain, vibrations would remain only vibrations. Consciousness adds meaning. The world becomes real to you because you can perceive it. Now, picture someone staring at the night sky. They look up at stars that existed long before they were born. The light they see traveled years to reach their eyes. The person feels small on a planet that spins in a vast emptiness. But that feeling contains a twist. The universe would continue with or without humans, but without awareness, the universe would not be known. When you look at the stars, you bring knowledge into existence. You turn distant light into an experience. Science describes consciousness as neural activity. Biology says it evolved to help living things survive. Those explanations make sense as far as they go, but they do not answer the deeper question: why does experience exist at all? Why does matter not remain silent and unaware? Why should a collection of atoms care about anything? Some scientists and philosophers suggest that consciousness may not be a late arrival in the universe. Maybe it is a fundamental property, like space or time. In that view, the brain does not produce awareness from nothing. It organizes awareness already present in the building blocks of reality. When the arrangement reaches a certain level of complexity, experience appears. This idea does not solve everything, but it shows how puzzling consciousness truly is. Think about a newborn. At first, the baby has no story of who they are. They sense warmth, hunger, and sound. Awareness exists, but identity does not yet. Over time, the baby learns the difference between what happens inside the body and what happens outside. The separation builds slowly. Before that, everything is part of one unknown world. Consciousness starts as pure experience before it becomes a perspective. You can see that original state in moments of awe. When something amazes you, thoughts go quiet. You stop explaining and simply witness. For a few seconds, the boundary between you and what you see feels thin. You and the world seem connected. The universe looks back at itself through your attention. Or think about when you listen to music that moves you. You forget about time. You forget about your worries. Awareness flows with the sound. You do not watch the moment from the outside. You feel it from within. Consciousness becomes part of the rhythm. You may feel something similar in nature. Standing near the ocean or in a forest, you sense how alive everything is around you. The mind grows still. The idea of a separate self loosens. You breathe the same air trees release. Your heart beats because of oxygen that traveled through leaves. The system includes you. Yet daily life often hides this connection. You worry about tasks. You try to meet expectations. You plan and judge and compare. In those moments, identity becomes a tight shape. You look at the world as something outside you, but the division is created by thought. Underneath thought, the same awareness remains. There are times when your mind asks questions without easy answers. Why am I here? What is the point of consciousness? These questions appear because awareness tries to understand itself. A rock does not ask why it exists. A tree does not wonder what its purpose might be. Consciousness creates curiosity. The universe uses your thoughts to look inward. Technology shows another angle. A camera records images. A sensor detects motion. Machines collect data, but data is not experience. Only consciousness turns information into meaning. When you watch a video, you assign value and feeling. You become the interpreter. You complete the loop. Even something as simple as noticing your breath reveals consciousness at work. You inhale and exhale all day without thinking. But when you bring attention to the breath, something changes. You observe the process. You feel air moving through the body. The experience gains depth and clarity. Awareness steps into the foreground. If consciousness shut off entirely, the world would continue physically. But the world as experienced would vanish. There would be no one to see colors, no one to feel gratitude, no one to wonder about anything. Experience gives reality the ability to be known. You are a point where matter wakes up. You are a temporary form that senses and reflects. The universe moves through you, from stardust to neurons to thought. And when you look around, at the sky, at a friend's face, At your own hands, you take part in a strange and beautiful process. Reality sees itself, even if only for a moment at a time. Most mornings, you wake up and step into a life that already feels decided. You know where you usually go. You know what you usually say. You know what worries will follow you through the day. You follow a script written by habits, roles, and expectations. You move in a loop because the loop feels safe. The self appears stable because yesterday's version hands you a plan for today. But what happens when that script falls apart? Who are you when routine no longer tells you? Think about your morning routine. You brush your teeth the same way. You drink the same drink. You check the same apps. You repeat actions without thinking. These small choices become identity. You might say, I am not a breakfast person, simply because you stopped eating in the morning years ago. The loop shapes the belief. The belief shapes the next loop. Sometimes you break from routine by accident. You forget your usual path and take a different street. You feel a shift. For a moment, you wake up inside your own life. You notice sounds and faces you usually ignore. A tiny break reveals how much you live on automatic. Consider someone who believes they are bad at meeting new people. The script says, stay quiet, avoid eye contact, get through it fast. They repeat this behavior, and the belief grows stronger. But if one day they start a simple conversation and it goes well, the loop cracks. A new line appears in the script. They might still feel nervous, but they now know change is possible. Habits form because the brain saves energy. It creates shortcuts so you do not have to relearn everything. Those shortcuts can help, but they can also trap. If you always react the same way, you do not see other options. The loop becomes a narrow hallway. You forget the world is wider. Now imagine a bigger shift. A job ends. A relationship changes. A move forces you into new surroundings. When the familiar disappears, identity feels shaky. You may ask, who am I without this role? The question sounds frightening, but it also shows truth. You were playing a part. Now the script gives no instruction, so the self must improvise. There is freedom in the unknown. Without yesterday's guidance, you have room to choose. People often learn new sides of themselves through disruption. Someone who always saw themselves as cautious might take a chance and feel alive. Someone who thought they knew their limits might discover strength they never expected. Change reveals hidden versions of you that the loop kept out of sight. Think about how you respond to conflict. You might always stay silent to avoid tension. The script protects peace, but it also hides your voice. If one day you speak up, you feel fear, but you also feel power. You surprise yourself. The self expands. The loop breaks. Sometimes breaking the loop is gentle. You try a new hobby and feel curious again. You switch up your style and see yourself differently in the mirror. You meet someone who encourages a new way of thinking. The change might seem small, but the impact reaches deep. Each new experience becomes a possible path. There are social loops too. People expect you to act a certain way. Friends say, you're always the planner, so you plan. They say, you're easygoing, so you avoid disagreement. You stick to the character others know. But when you try something outside the role, some people resist. They liked the old script. They want the same performance. Their discomfort can pull you back into the loop. This is where choice matters. You can decide whether you will act from habit or from awareness. Notice a moment of automatic behavior. You may rush to answer a message. You may apologize without needing to. You may say yes when you feel no. Pause there. Ask, is this who I want to be today, or is this who I was yesterday? The question creates space. In that space, identity becomes flexible. Think about beliefs you hold about yourself. I am bad with money. I never finish anything. I am always anxious. These beliefs come from past experience, but the past does not get to be the author forever. Beliefs are habits of thought. They repeat until challenged. If you shift one behavior, one small action, the story begins to change. Memory loops can also hold identity in place. You replay old failures. You store old labels. You let outdated versions guide decisions. But memory is not a rule. It is a record. You can reference it without obeying it. Even boredom is a loop. When you feel stuck, it often means the script is too tight. The brain wants stimulation. Identity wants growth. Trying something new, even tiny, can wake the system. A new route home, a new seat at the table, a new question in a familiar conversation. Breaking the loop does not erase who you are. It reveals more of who you could be. A child tries many roles before settling into one. Adults also carry many possible selves, but often stop exploring. Comfort becomes a routine that masquerades as identity. When life disrupts the pattern, the self can feel lost, but maybe it is not lost. Maybe it is finally free to look around. The loop is not the enemy. It helps life run smoothly. But if you never step outside it, you forget that other shapes are possible. Each day offers a choice. Repeat yesterday's script, or let a new line be written. You can break the loop in a single small moment. It can start with a pause, a breath, a question asked inside your own mind. The question asks who you are today, instead of assuming the answer arrived already written. You walk through life with a sense that you know who you are. You trust your intentions. You believe you understand your preferences. When you imagine the future, you assume the person who wakes up tomorrow will feel like the same you who woke up today. But every so often, something happens that challenges this belief. You react in a way you never expected. You change your mind about something you thought was certain. You catch yourself acting like someone else. These moments of surprise reveal that the self is not fully known. There is a stranger living inside the I. Think about a time when you gave advice you did not follow yourself. You might tell a friend to take a risk, yet you hesitate when you face the same situation. You can see other people more clearly than you see yourself. You watch their patterns from the outside. You look inward and find confusion. The stranger inside you does not always agree with the voice that gives guidance. Or consider a time when you reacted with anger before you understood why. Maybe someone made a comment that touched an old memory. Your reaction surprised even you. You say, "I didn't mean to snap," but you did snap. The emotion came from a part of you that rarely speaks. The stranger took over the moment and showed a different truth. Everyone has impulses that feel out of character. You might feel drawn to an idea that conflicts with your values. You might avoid something you believed you wanted. You might love a hobby you once found boring. These shifts feel sudden because the self does not reveal every part of itself at once. You discover pieces slowly as life brings them forward. Memory adds another twist. You think you remember yourself well, but memory reshapes the past. You look back and assume you always felt the way you feel now. You edit your history to match your current version. but old journals or photos remind you that the earlier self thought differently. You read your own writing and think, who was that person? That person was you, the you before this one. The stranger changes over time. The mind builds a sense of continuity, but continuity is a story told in hindsight. You connect dots after the fact. You make a narrative that explains your life as one steady path. Yet everyone has moments that disrupt the story. A new experience challenges your beliefs. A sudden emotion challenges your identity. You learn that the self is not one thing. It is many things that take turns stepping forward. Think about decisions you regret. You look at your past actions and think, I would never do that now. You feel distance from the person who made the choice, but that person used the information and feelings they had then. They acted from a different place in the mind. The stranger lived inside you even then. You only noticed later. Bias also hides the stranger. You might believe you are fair and open-minded. Then you catch yourself judging someone quickly and without reason. The judgment appears before you think. You may feel embarrassed because your belief about yourself did not match your reaction. The stranger reveals blind spots you did not want to see. Personality tests try to capture the self, but answers can change depending on mood or situation. On one day, you enjoy social contact. On another, you avoid it. On one day, you feel confident about the future. On another, you feel unsure. The test measures a moment, not a constant truth. The stranger shifts with context. Relationships expose surprising sides too. With one group of friends, you might become the talkative one. With another, you stay quiet and reflective. You are the same person, yet you play different roles. The stranger adapts. You learn what version of yourself each environment encourages. Consider creativity. You may discover a hidden talent later in life. You write a poem or pick up a guitar and feel a spark you never noticed before. You might say, I didn't know I could do that. The ability was there, waiting. The stranger held it all along. Desire can surprise you as well. You think you know what you want until a new possibility appears. You meet someone who changes your priorities. You chase a dream that never occurred to the older version of you. You wonder why you did not see the desire sooner. The stranger waited for the right moment. Even body and brain contribute to unexpected behavior. Hunger, stress, or hormones can shift mood and decision-making. You might think a belief changed when the body simply pushed a different emotional state to the surface. The stranger listens to the body too. There is also the uncomfortable surprise. When you act in ways that hurt someone, you apologize and say, that wasn't like me, but the action came from you. Instead of denying the stranger, you can ask what that version needed or feared. The answer might reveal a part of identity that has been ignored. Sometimes you surprise yourself in the best way. You find courage when you needed it most. You forgive more easily than you thought you could. You learn from a mistake rather than hide it. The stranger inside you contains strengths you have not fully accessed yet. The self lives as a combination of known and unknown elements. You see some parts clearly. Others stay in shadow. You catch glimpses of them when reactions break through the mask, when circumstances shake the routine, or when life demands a new version. You might spend years believing you have figured yourself out. Then one day, you change direction or discover a new passion. The shift feels sudden, but it often comes from something growing quietly inside you. The stranger arrives not from nowhere, but from within. Most of us talk about identity as if it sits inside the brain like a pilot in a cockpit. We say the mind thinks, decides, remembers, and feels. We call the brain the center of who we are. But the body does not sit silent while the brain works. Every heartbeat, every breath, every tension in a muscle shapes what we think and how we act. Identity might not live in one place at all. It might stretch across the entire nervous system, carried in signals that move between brain and body from the moment we wake until the moment we sleep. Imagine you receive bad news. Before a thought forms, your chest tightens, your stomach drops, your pulse quickens. The reaction starts in the body. The brain interprets those sensations and decides the emotion is fear or worry. If the physical symptoms were different, the feeling could change too. You do not wait to think before the body responds. The body acts first. Identity shifts in those seconds, moving you from calm person to concerned person before the mind catches up. Consider when you feel angry. Heat rises in your skin, your jaw clenches, your breathing changes. The body signals a threat. Then the brain explains the threat with thoughts. You might think, they disrespected me, or this is unfair. The body offers raw experience. The brain gives it a story. Without the story, the sensation would not feel like anger. Without the sensation, the story would not feel true. The heart plays a role in this loop. It does more than pump blood. It sends constant feedback to the brain about the state of the body. The brain uses that information to decide whether you feel safe or stressed. When your heart beats faster, the brain might interpret the speed as excitement or danger, depending on context. The same physical change can create different versions of you. Think about the times you felt very nervous before speaking in public. Your heart raced, your hands shook. You believed the reaction showed weakness. Later, you may feel the same heartbeat while dancing or laughing, but this time you call it joy. The body offers signals. The interpretation creates identity. You become a nervous speaker in one situation and a lively friend in another. Breathing matters too. When you breathe slow and deep, the nervous system shifts into a calmer state. Your mind relaxes, thoughts soften. You may feel more patient or open. A small physical action changes who you believe yourself to be in that moment. You might describe yourself as peaceful, but the breath created the peace. The brain depends on these signals. Neurons fire constantly, but their patterns shift according to the body's needs. When the stomach is empty, you think about food. When muscles ache, you think about rest. When hormones rise, your desires and plans change. Identity adjusts to physical states without asking permission. There are times when a change in the body changes identity dramatically. Illness can make a confident person unsure. Pain can make a patient person irritable. Hormonal shifts can change what someone cares about. Losing strength or mobility can challenge how someone sees themselves. When the body shifts, the brain must rethink the self. Memory even connects to the body. Some memories come with a physical reaction, a racing heart, a clenched stomach, before the mind recalls the facts. Trauma shows how strong the body's role can be. A sound or smell might trigger a full response long before a conscious thought appears. The body remembers what the mind might wish to forget. There are also joyful memories with physical echoes. You hear a song linked to a good moment, and your chest feels light. You feel excitement before you recall why. The body tells the brain what kind of memory is on its way. Think about love. People often describe it as a feeling in the heart or the stomach. The brain builds attachment through complex chemistry, but the signals arrive in the body first. A glance, a touch, a familiar voice, all spark physical reactions. You call those reactions emotion, and emotion becomes part of identity. If identity lived only in the brain, your posture would not matter. But when you stand tall, you feel different. You might feel stronger. You might speak with more certainty. When you shrink your body, you feel smaller inside too. The body sets the tone for how the brain interprets the world. When someone feels anxious often, the body can remain in a state of alert. The brain looks for reasons for the tension and finds them even if they are small. Identity becomes "I am anxious" because the body keeps sending signals that something is wrong. The mind listens and believes the message. On the other side, physical grounding practices like stretching, walking, or deep breathing can change how someone describes themselves. They may say, "I feel like myself again," after the body calms. The self returns not through thinking, but through sensation. Some philosophers say the mind is embodied. Identity is not a thing locked inside the skull. It exists in the interaction between sensory input and interpretation. You know who you are because you feel yourself from the inside. Your heartbeat, breath, and physical limits define the shape of your experience. Even your sense of agency relies on the body. You move a hand and see it respond. You walk forward and the world moves by. If your movements stopped matching your intentions, identity would crumble. You would wonder who is in control. The self depends on the body doing what the brain expects. The question of where identity lives may not have a simple answer. It may not be brain versus heart. It may be the loop between them. The loop creates a living sense of personhood, a moving target shaped by nerves, muscles, breath, and thought. You are not just a mind thinking. You are thoughts with a body, and the body constantly tells the mind who you are. When you wake up each morning, the world appears again. Light enters your eyes, sounds reach your ears. The body feels the pull of gravity. Before any thought forms, awareness comes alive. You do not choose it. You find yourself already conscious, already placed in the center of a world that demands attention. The sense of me rises from this starting point. But when you look closely, that me is not a fixed object. It is a fabric woven out of moment-by-moment experience. Think about your first memories. They likely begin several years after you were born. Before those memories, you existed physically, but the sense of self had not yet formed a story. The brain was awake, but not yet organized enough to say, "This is happening to me." Consciousness was like a blank field, waiting for threads to appear. Through sensation and learning, those threads shaped the first outline of identity. Awareness does not grow from thought alone. It grows from interaction. A baby feels hunger and learns that relief comes from another person. The baby cries, gets held, and slowly learns that there is an inside and an outside. Warmth and care form the first clues that the body belongs to someone. Each moment of attention to sensation strengthens an early sense of being. As language arrives, the self becomes more defined. A child learns the word "I" and uses it often. They say "my toy," "my turn," "my idea." The brain uses language to label experience, turning raw sensation into personal events. When a child says "I fell," they place themselves as the subject of the story. Awareness becomes structured into a continuous thread. But the thread is not solid. It is fragile and flexible. You can see this when you lose track of time. You may work on something, look up, and discover that hours passed without noticing. Awareness narrowed to a task. Everything else fell away. You did not think about your name or your history. During those moments, the self took a quieter position. The fabric loosened, yet you continued to act and think. Now picture a moment of embarrassment. You become sharply aware of yourself. You notice how you stand, how your voice sounds, where your hands go. The self tightens into focus. Awareness crowds the present, with thoughts about how others see you. Here, the fabric feels heavy. The me becomes the center of attention. Emotion amplifies selfhood. Both extremes reveal how flexible the self is. In one case, awareness dissolves into the task. In the other, awareness clings tightly to identity. The sense of I changes shape based on what the mind focuses on. Think about pain. When pain arrives, it takes over. The body demands attention. The brain forms a clear sense of self around the feeling. You become a person in pain. Everything else moves to the background. When the pain fades, the self shifts again. You feel like the same person, yet something changed. Awareness wove a new thread into the identity based on that experience. Emotion plays the same role. Joy expands awareness. Sadness narrows it. Fear sharpens it. Calm softens it. Each state alters what feels true about the self. Someone angry may think, I am always like this. Someone peaceful may think, I can handle anything. The statements come from temporary states, but the mind treats them as truths. The fabric responds to each moment and reorganizes its pattern. Memory holds the fabric together. Without memory, each moment of awareness would stand alone. You would not know who you were yesterday. You would not know who you plan to be tomorrow. Memory stitches experiences into a timeline. It selects moments that matter and ignores others. The result becomes the story of you. But memory does not work like an archive. It rewrites each time you recall something. Details shift, feelings change. The brain updates old events to match the current version of self. The thread gets repaired and altered to maintain a smooth picture. The fabric feels steady, even when it is constantly being woven again. Attention decides which threads matter. You may notice a conversation and ignore the sound of your own breathing. You may focus on a worry and miss an opportunity. The mind filters experience and chooses what becomes part of identity. Two people can live through the same event, but walk away with different memories because each noticed different things. Awareness constructs personal reality from selective perception. Sometimes the fabric tears. Trauma can shatter continuity. After a painful event, a person may feel disconnected from who they once were. The self that existed before the experience feels distant. The brain must rebuild the narrative with new information. Healing becomes a process of weaving identity back together so the person can say, "This is still me." Other times, change feels gentle. A new friendship, a skill learned, a belief challenged. Each can shift the pattern of selfhood. You may not notice the shift immediately, but months later, you look back and realize you grew. Even imagination shapes identity. You think about who you want to become. You picture future choices, skills, and relationships. Those imagined moments guide behavior. They add threads to the fabric before the experience has even happened. The self grows toward the image you hold in mind. Awareness does not stop while you sleep. Dreams show consciousness in another form. In a dream, you play out fears or hopes without physical risk. You wake with emotions that influence the waking self. The brain uses sleep to organize memory and refine personality. The fabric continues weaving, even when you are not aware of being aware. Identity does not appear from a single source. It emerges from sensation, emotion, memory, thought, and imagination working together. Each moment adds one more thread. On its own, a thread is nothing. Together, they create the feeling of me. When you pause and observe your experience, you might notice how quickly the self updates. One comment from another person can change how you see yourself. One mistake can shake your confidence. One success can expand your limits. Awareness weaves relentlessly. turning experience into identity. You are not finished. You are being made, one moment at a time. You sit in a room, or a car, or a cafe, and life around you keeps moving. People talk, lights switch on, a distant engine hums. Everything looks ordinary. Yet somewhere inside, a quiet question appears. How did I end up here? You know your history, your routines, your responsibilities. But the fact of being alive at all can feel strange. It feels like waking in the middle of a story and not knowing who wrote the first chapter. Many people feel this confusion, but rarely talk about it. The mind handles day-to-day tasks well. It knows how to reply to a message or cross a street. But when the mind looks too far outward or too far inward, it reaches a place that has no clear explanation. You feel aware of yourself as a small shape in a universe that does not speak. The universe gives no confirmation that you belong. This can create a form of cosmic imposter syndrome, the sense that existence is too large, too complex, and you must have arrived by mistake. Think about how tiny humans are in the scale of things. The Earth spins among billions of stars. Your hometown barely exists on a map from space. Yet inside your head, your thoughts feel enormous. One worry, one hope, one memory can fill your whole awareness. The contrast can feel uncomfortable. Part of you says, I matter, while another part says, why would anything here care about me? The mind holds both beliefs at once because it needs both to function. Imagine walking outside on a quiet night. The sky stretches overhead with no end in sight. You feel the cool air. You hear your footsteps in the dark. For a moment, you sense how large everything is and how little you control. A thought arrives. Does any of this notice that I exist? You do not get an answer. You keep walking. The moment passes, but the question waits for your return. Consider the roles you play in daily life. You show up to work and act like someone who knows what they are doing. You talk to friends and act like someone who fits in. You move through crowds and act like someone with a clear direction. But sometimes, when you're alone, you feel unsure about everything. You think, am I pretending to be the person others think I am? Am I pretending to be the person I think I am? The distance between the role and the reality can feel wide. Even accomplishments can trigger doubt. When you succeed at something, you may think luck was involved. You may believe someone else deserved it more. You might feel like you fooled everyone into thinking you are capable. That doubt becomes stronger when you think about how brief the human life is compared to time itself. You might wonder, does any of this matter? The universe stays silent, and the silence leaves room for doubt. Philosophers have asked these questions for centuries. Why is there something instead of nothing? Why does consciousness exist? Why do we feel like we are the center of our own experience when the universe shows no sign that it notices us at all? There are no clear answers. The lack of explanation can feel like uncertainty is built into existence. The sense of being out of place often appears during major change. A person moves to a new city and feels like they are watching someone else live their life. A student enters a new school and feels like everyone else knows the rules already. A person falls in love and wonders why someone sees value in them. The self pauses and looks around, unsure if it belongs in its own story. Technology adds more pressure. You scroll through perfectly curated lives online and believe others know exactly who they are. Their confidence looks real. Their direction looks clear. You compare your confusion to their performance and think, I must be behind. You treat your private questions as flaws because everyone else hides theirs too. But doubt comes from awareness. You can question your existence because you are conscious enough to observe yourself. A tree does not feel insecure about its place in the forest. A fish does not wonder why it swims. Humans reflect. Humans doubt. The ability to ask why we exist can make us feel like we don't. Think about identity for a moment. You can describe who you are, your name, your job, your interests. Those describe the present version of you. But you know that version changes. The person you were 5 years ago might feel like a stranger. The person you will become 5 years from now is unknown. Between those versions, there is a moving target. When you look for a stable self and find one that shifts, doubt can follow. The universe does not provide a clear purpose. It does not send instructions. You must decide meaning for yourself. That responsibility can feel heavy. You choose what to believe matters. You choose what version of yourself to become. You choose direction without knowing if the destination makes sense. Choice can feel like pressure, especially when surrounded by infinite space and silence. Yet doubt can reveal something useful. It shows that you care about understanding. It shows that you notice what most ignore. It shows that curiosity lives in you. Without doubt, you might never question habits or assumptions. You might never look at the stars and wonder how anything exists at all. Moments of cosmic uncertainty often come when life slows down. A long pause, a quiet morning, a sleepless night. The brain stops following routine and suddenly sees the big picture. The big picture overwhelms. You may worry that you are not important enough to exist in such a vast place, but the question itself reveals your place. The universe may not answer, but you are here to ask. When you fall asleep, the world you know disappears. The bed beneath you stays real, and the room stays the same, but your awareness turns inward. A new place forms with its own logic. You walk through scenes that shift without warning. You meet people who change faces. You accept impossible moments without question. Yet through it all, the experience still feels like it belongs to you. Even when the story makes no sense, the dream self never says, "I am someone else." The dream uses your skin because the brain does not stop building a self, even when it lets go of reality. Think about how quickly dreams form a character. One moment you lie in the dark. The next moment you run across a field or talk to someone who does not exist. You do not pause to introduce yourself. You simply arrive as me. The dream self acts before thinking. It already knows your fears and hopes. It already knows the tone of your inner voice. The brain retrieves a version of the self, and that version steps into the scene without hesitation. Dreams show how much identity depends on perspective. You rarely see yourself from the outside in a dream. You look out through your own eyes. You react with familiar emotions. Even when the setting changes wildly, the first-person viewpoint continues. If the brain removed that viewpoint, the experience would not feel like a dream. It would feel like someone else's story. A link between your awareness and the dream world holds the identity in place. Sometimes the dream self behaves in ways that surprise you. You might speak boldly. When awake, you would stay silent. You might run toward danger instead of away. You might cry or laugh at things that would not move you during the day. These moments reveal that parts of yourself stay active when the conscious mind rests. The dream self explores possibilities the waking self avoids. It wears your history, but tries on new patterns. Look at nightmares. In a nightmare, your heart pounds and fear rises fast. The threat may be ridiculous, A shadow, a sudden noise, an enemy with no clear shape. But the fear feels real. The dream self believes the danger. It does not stop and say, "This is a dream." The brain uses fear as a way to practice survival. It keeps the same emotional system alive at night, so you can respond quickly if danger appears while you are awake. Your identity as someone who wants to stay alive remains constant, even in a place where logic disappears. The brain also uses dreams to process memory. You might dream about people you have not seen in years. You might replay pieces of conversations from the day. The scenes mix together into something strange, but the emotions stick. In those dreams, the self continues to sort through what matters. If a memory carries weight, the dream self brings it back for another look. You wake up thinking the dream made no sense, yet you still feel the emotion it left behind. Sometimes the dream self forgets basic facts. You might dream you can breathe underwater or fly or move through walls. You accept these abilities as normal. The self adjusts to the rules of the current world without questioning. This shows how flexible identity is. The brain cares more about the sense of need doing something than about whether the action matches real life. Experience defines identity in the moment, not facts. There are dreams where you do not appear as yourself. You might have a different appearance, age, or voice, but even then, the story feels like yours. You do not think, "I am a different person." You think, "This is still happening to me." The feeling of ownership stays intact. The brain anchors identity, not in the body, but in the center of experience. Then there are lucid dreams. In those rare moments, the dream self becomes aware of dreaming. You stop and think, "This isn't real." Yet you do not disappear from the scene. You keep the character, but now you control the script. You may fly by choice, or explore a landscape built from imagination. This shows that identity can operate independent of rules as long as awareness stays active. The self persists through both confusion and clarity. Waking up from a powerful dream can create a strange reaction. For a moment, you do not know which world is real. The emotional residue stays with you. You might feel joy from a dream that gave you something you miss. You might feel sadness from a dream that took something away. The brain tells you the dream was not real, but the body and heart respond as if it happened. The dream self leaves footprints in the waking self. Dreams can reveal desires you bury. You may behave honestly in a dream because there is no audience to impress. You may speak truths your waking voice fears. You may revisit unfinished feelings. The dream self shows personal information you did not ask for, sometimes uncomfortable and sometimes helpful. It insists that these thoughts belong to you, even when you deny them during the day. Night after night, you return to a self that changes shape but remains centered on your awareness. The brain never lets your identity dissolve completely. It keeps the I intact because the sense of being someone might be too important to let go, even for a few hours. When you wake up, you leave the dream world quickly, but the dream self does not vanish. It folds back into the larger identity. It adds new emotions, insights, or questions. It lives inside your mind as another version of you, one that acts without fear of consequence, one that explores possibilities, one that continues being me even when the world outside sleeps. Your dreaming mind insists on wearing your skin because the sense of self does not stop when consciousness shifts. Identity adapts to each environment, waking or sleeping. The story of I continues, even in places where nothing makes sense. Every day, you carry memories of your past, They help you remember what you care about and what you fear. But memory does more than look backward. Your brain also uses imagination to look ahead. It creates scenes that have not happened yet. You picture how things might go. You picture who you might become. These imagined futures feel like memories in advance. They guide your choices long before real events unfold. Think about planning a simple meeting with a friend. Before the meeting happens, you imagine the place, the conversation, the mood. That image shapes what you wear, how early you leave home, and what you expect to feel. The future influences the present. The mind rehearses moments so they feel familiar when they arrive. This ability is called prospection. The brain projects into tomorrow to prepare for it. It sorts through possibilities. It warns you of danger and encourages opportunity. When you imagine success, you may feel motivated and confident. When you imagine failure, you may hesitate. The imagined outcome shapes the action. Look at how you set goals. You picture a version of yourself who reads more, exercises more, or builds stronger relationships. That picture helps you decide what to do today. You act to align the present with the future you want. Even if the goal changes later, the imagined identity changes your behavior now. Sometimes you imagine negative futures. You think about what could go wrong. You replay fears as if they are already true. You say things like, "If I try this, it will turn out badly." The brain believes the threat enough to act as though the danger is real. The self becomes cautious. Anxiety can come from treating future possibilities as memories from the past. Consider someone who avoids public speaking. When they picture standing in front of a crowd, they see embarrassment. They feel it in their chest and throat. Their body reacts even though nothing is happening. That imagined event holds power because the brain cannot always tell the difference between real experience and vividly simulated experience. The present self obeys a future that has not happened. On the other side, hope uses the same mechanism. When you imagine a future where you succeed, you might take risks that help you grow. You may try new things because you can already see yourself living that life. The imagined future becomes a guide. It acts like a memory from a place you have not yet visited. People sometimes talk about intuition. They describe a feeling that something will happen. Intuition may come from the brain projecting likely outcomes based on patterns you have learned. It remembers the future by combining past and present. You respond to possibilities before you can explain them. Even routine tasks rely on imagined futures. When you walk across a room, your mind plans each step. You picture yourself reaching the other side. Without that tiny projection, movement would feel unsure. The self does not move blindly. It moves toward an image of the next moment. Think about regret. Regret looks back, but it also looks forward. You regret something because you imagine how life would be different now if you had chosen differently then. The imagined alternate future hurts more than the memory of the past event. The brain compares two versions of you, the one that exists and the one who might have existed. This comparison shapes how you behave next time. You try to avoid the imagined pain. When you feel stuck in life, the future may look empty. You cannot see possibilities ahead, so the present loses direction. Identity relies on having something to move toward. The memory of tomorrow becomes a map. Without a map, you feel lost, even if nothing is wrong in the present moment. We also imagine futures for others. You picture a friend being happy or a family member succeeding. You act to help that future come true. Your identity extends to include the people you care about. you become someone who supports their future selves as well as your own. Relationships often depend on shared imagined futures. Two people plan a life together. They picture a home, children, trips, or years of companionship. Those images build emotional bonds. When the shared future changes or disappears, the bond changes too. A breakup does not only end the present relationship, it erases the imagined version of tomorrow. The grief includes the loss of a future self. There are moments when the future feels close and clear. For example, the night before a big event, you may picture every detail. You walk through the experience in your mind. You imagine what you will say or do. By the time the real moment arrives, it feels familiar because you have rehearsed it. The self steps into a future that is already partly remembered. There are other times when the future feels uncertain or frightening. Standing at a crossroads, you imagine multiple paths. Each path creates a different version of you. You try on these identities like clothes, seeing which one fits. You may delay making a decision because choosing a path means letting the other versions fade. The future can influence self-esteem. If you imagine a version of yourself who grows and improves, you may feel hopeful. If you imagine a version who struggles or fails, you may doubt your worth. The present self borrows confidence or fear from the imagined future. Even stories you consume affect this process. Books, movies, and conversations give you examples of possible futures. They show that certain lives exist. They expand what you can imagine. When you discover a new possibility, your sense of identity stretches to include it. The brain never stops predicting. It updates projections constantly using new information. The self becomes fluid, guided by what might happen next. You live between memory and imagination, shaped not only by what you have done, but also by what you believe you could do. You experience tomorrow before it arrives. In that preview, identity begins to form.